So this is the statement. I will give it to you in a minute, but first, I want to see what I missed.
How's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing okay. Ever has won, so a little bits trying 99% case daily. Yeah, I still think it's together for everybody. Yeah, I'm just trying to do exactly. We want it to work for.
Okay,
I'm not sure exactly who everybody else is, but yeah, Daniel's cousin.
so this is Logan. I want to revisit Logan. Knowing what we know now, what may we have missed?
No, go ahead.
Did mom ever hey, I just find it so odd. You would think, did any of them ever make the statement that they wanted to look for the children, or did she make a fuss saying I don't want to leave until I find my kids?
No.
Really?
No. So that's what I stated as well. Because when I got there, I said, "Do you want me to stay with the baby? You can go look." She goes, "I'm going to stay with."
Yeah, I mean, Malaya is, other than, Daniel and his family, yeah, Daniel's low level acting skills. Malaya has no acting skills, and she knows it. Malaya, she was like, why am I here? She doesn't pretend she's gonna go looking for them. She knows the kids are not there. They're not going to be found. It's different for some people. They will put on an act and start pretending, put on a show. Malaya is the opposite. She just shuts down completely. And the last time I talked about, there was a statement that Daniel had made. I jumped out of the SUV, then proceeded towards the woods, but officers yelled at me not to enter the woods. Very good, right? Because he's at least a person of interest. Now remember, in that interview with Kayla, he said the stepfather is always the suspect. Well, the stepfather is always a person of interest. The suspect part is due to Daniel, not due to stepfather. They suspected him. So, the last thing you want to do is let the suspect near a crime scene. Because the suspect, if he is guilty, knows exactly what needs to be cleaned up. He knows exactly where the evidence is, or could be, or what he may have missed. And by crime scene, I mean crime scenes, because there are several crimes that have been committed, including getting rid of the bodies. So, one of those was the pipeline area, where Daniel drove the ATV that night, and he wanted to revisit it. Something may have happened. Maybe one of the bodies slipped off. I talked about already why I think that could have happened. He may think, oh my God, I need to get there before the RCMP examines it any further. Because I know where I was driving, I know where to look, and I need to remove anything that I can find there that could lead them to realize I was there with the children. Maybe Daniel lost something of his own over there that he had to get. If you have evidence that both Daniel and the children were there around the same time, that would do him in. And as I have already concluded from Janie's statements, his friends were there with him. Who was there? That's what we need to know. Which friends were there? Who helped him? What do they all know? Nobody's speaking. Well, they're not giving information to the police. It's quite the opposite. They're actually misleading on purpose, which is really crazy, but that's what it is. It's one of those subcultures where they just don't talk to police. Police is the enemy. Police is you know, you don't talk to police. You stick together. But Daniel had to get back out there. And he was on edge. He really was on edge because he knew this could land him in prison very quickly. He was absolutely desperate. He wasn't desperate to go out look for Jack and Lily. He was only at the pipeline. So, I'm now adjusting to Janie's language, right? So, I walked back to the house and was further told not to enter the woods. Yes, that's proper procedure. They say, you stay right here, dude. You go nowhere near anything. You stay right where we can see you. Perfect, right? I was beyond frustrated. So recognize the beyond frustrated part. What goes beyond frustrated? What is the beyond? How about scared shitless? This is from the long note that he wrote, where he wanted to prove that he has nothing to hide and that he's not just a hit and run kind of guy who makes one-liner comments and then doesn't reply to any questions. And mind you also, when you read the whole thing, which I did with you guys, there are not a lot of mistakes in there compared to how he usually writes. I believe that he took a lot of time, not just on the writing part, but also the editing part. And maybe Logan helped him. I don't know Janie, how she writes. I don't think she's the type to sit down with him and correct things with him. She would probably just sit there, look at how you spell this. I don't know, maybe Logan actually, she's a little bit brighter. And I think maybe Logan actually helped out with couple, who knows. But he took his time. And whenever I have very long statements, I hate to read them. Because people often dance around the point they're making. And in this particular long statement, there was nothing new we had learned except this one part. This one statement is of interest to me. And he goes, this is, I believe, something that comes from within. This is not about, okay, what was the timeline? What should we write? What was the script again? Let me get it down. No, I think here, looking at the context, this is an extremely important part for Daniel, that he was able to re-enter the woods. I think it drove him absolutely insane, and he was there was a priority, and the priority was I had to get back out there. You see the language he's using? I walked back to the house and was further told not to enter the woods. I think he went just, internally ballistic, but was talking up a storm. What do you mean? And they all said, listen, dude, that's the instructions we got. And we don't know what's going on yet, but we can't let you go back out there. They were listening to their instructions. They were following protocol. That's very good. I was beyond frustrated. I wasn't allowed to search. I believe he was searching, but he was not searching for Jack and Lily until a officer, well, he's still being Daniel, right, with his spelling, until a officer dressed in military gear gave me the green light. So when you have 2 children missing, what do you focus on when it comes to the police? How do you view them? In Katie Proudfoot's case, she said authorities were on their way. Not help was on the way. Authorities. She viewed them as authorities. She had to get her act together and said, oh, the authorities are coming. Not help was on the way. Oh my God, here's the police. Thank you guys. Please help me find my son. They're suddenly your helpers. They wouldn't be viewed as an authority, because what do you have to be authoritarian about? The police was supposed to come and help you find Sebastian, right? So what he focuses on is there's somebody who has the power to tell me to do something or not to do something. And he needed to get back out there. I was beyond frustrated. I wasn't allowed to search until an officer dressed in military gear. So maybe that's whom he approached. And Daniel is a whiner and a talker. And he probably did his fake crying and said, oh my God, Jackie, Jackie, you have kids, yeah, this is my kids, And he probably put this act on, and maybe this guy fell for it. Maybe it's made up? No. This guy fell for it, I think. Or did he sneak by them? Well, let's look at it. Until a officer dressed in military gear gave me the green light to re-enter the woods. He said, go for it. I still remember it said Oliver on the back of his vest. Yep. He probably went on a display of fake emotions, and the guy said, go for it. I think that Daniel has a way of convincing people, being able to convince people. And I believe it gives him a natural high when he's able to do that. That's why his stooping delight. The combination of getting away with something, being able to go back out there and search, because this guy allowed him to do it, one guy, and then maybe the other said, yeah, forget it, man, this guy, let's get him out of here. I don't want to hear his whining, I don't want to hear his, which is really, really, calling this a mistake would just be an understatement, guys. This is a huge blunder. And they should have not done that. They should have never allowed him. They should have kept an eye on him the whole entire time. Kept him right there on the property. Say, you sit tight. We will search a trailer. You can go back in there. You can hang out here. But this is an active investigation, and you're a person of interest because you're the stepfather. Don't tell me he's a suspect. You're a person of interest. We can detain you. This, people, I believe, is him thanking Officer Oliver for his freedom. I think that he is so... Look, I can't never give that much guy enough credit, because ever outer officer said no. Well, I cannot never give that much guy the end all be all. He added guy after much, because to him this guy is like God at the moment. This guy said it's okay, and he gave him green light. Now, green light indicates that you had a very specific goal. When you have a destination, I have to go to the office, I'm already late. Thank God there's green light. Thank God for the green light. I made it in time. I didn't get written up again. To re-enter the woods. He said, go for it. He went straight for the pipeline area. And these are the kinds of moments that we do remember. When there is a high stress situation, and in his case it was, shit, I dropped something. Maybe I dropped something. I don't know where I dropped it. I likely there. I gotta get there in time before the RCMP goes there and finds it. He was under intense pressure. This can get me arrested right now. If they find something that belonged to the children next to something that belonged to me, then they will know that I was there with the children together. And you look at the terrain and how it was raining, and they're able to see around what time something may have been dropped. So they would know around the same time him and the kids were there. Immediately they would arrest him. Immediately. Hardly any evidence is what he said in the beginning. Not like Chris Proudfoot, who said there is no evidence whatsoever. Daniel knows he made mistakes. But thanks to being able to go out there again, and his friends were all there. Normally you would say, okay, listen, I'm looking through here, and mind you, they were supposed to be looking for two children, 4 and 6 years old, not spending time on the same spot, looking on the ground, looking through the ground, picking up the dirt, seeing if there's something dropped underneath and the mud or whatever there was. No, let's say there were 5 or 6 people. You say 2 of you go this way, 2 go the other way, and then you would spread out and yell, Jack, Lily, Jack, Lily. Not all of you being stuck in the same area. And one of you made a very good comment and said, you know what? They missed an opportunity to follow Daniel. Now, I don't know about the drones, how, I guess you can follow him with the drone, right? From a distance and still be able to see him without him maybe noticing it. I'm careful criticizing police because I'm not on the inside on this one. What they were thinking, what they already knew, what they were working on, and so on and so on. But when there are mistakes made, I will point them out to you guys. Mistakes are something we can learn from. Now later on, remember, they went back to search a second time, only at the pipeline area. And I believe that is probably because, that's where the footprint was found. The blanket was found nearby. And maybe they found out that's where Daniel and his buddies were hanging out. And maybe some of these buddies were well known to police. And they said, oh my God, a bunch of dudes we're familiar with, birds of a feather, all in that spot. We need to go back there, dude. Hey, Oliver, why did you let him go back out there? Oh, come on, he was what? Oh my God. And always the same shit. Ugh. Well, let's go back there. Well, it was too late. If you have, let's say, 5 or 6 people searching, combing the area, and Daniel knew exactly, okay, this is where I stopped real quick because I had to adjust, the bodies on the ITV. And maybe, this is where, whatever, Jackie slipped off and his foot hit who knows? These are just possibilities here. And the blanket, when I stopped, the blanket blew down this little road or something like that. He went down the pipeline. Maybe he went to adjust things on the ATV, and he went a little bit in here. The blanket wound up there. This is a huge area of interest, guys. And he went right back there, out of all the places. And I do believe from there it was the ocean. Of course, there was mud also around there. But Daniel uses his words for a reason. With all the fabrication, he is using language that indicates knowledge of something that happened. He can't never give enough credit to him because he thinks if it wasn't for Officer Oliver, he would be locked up. He found something, hardly any evidence. He found something and was able to remove it and clear the area so that when finally these guys returned, it was too late. They were not able to find anything. So, I was asked to look at the Durwood O'Grady thing. I'm not ready yet for that. There's too much. Well, let me see. And there are other areas I will get into also, and I want to know also who was that lady with the kid on the ATV by the pipeline. Before I move on to Cousin Logan, I'm going to revisit some of you guys' questions or statements or comments. But, well, we need to know, we really need to know who the people were, who the friends were near the pipeline who helped Daniel. That's really what we need to know. So at this point, I am pretty much done, guys, because the main purpose, if not the only purpose of this video, is to actually bring you this statement that has been graciously sent to me after I asked if any of you has it available.
Can I clear something up about the four-wheeler? Justin and I were the ones driving on the four-wheeler, but we picked Daniel up around the pipeline. Justin and I went up around the pipeline, and we were going through an old road, and we seen Daniel. And Daniel got on the bike, and we sat on front of the bike until we get back to the pipeline, and we dropped him off with some of his friends, and then Justin and I took off back home. So Daniel was on the bike, sitting on the front of the bike. So there was me, Justin, and Daniel on the bike. He was sitting on the front of it. But Justin and I had the bike out all day. I'm fine. I just went through your comments to see if there's any questions you had to ask, and I just wanted to clear that up. I just want to say Daniel has done so many interviews, and to tell you the truth, if I was in his place, I'd be so confused because people have been asking him so many questions, and it's just, I don't know how anybody
can keep a story straight, right? Is that what you're going to say? I don't see how anybody could keep a story straight when you fabricate some complete bullshit. And that's exactly what happened. If you speak the truth, if you stick to what you know, and you give information, you're not going to stray. You're going to stick You're going to stay on that path where you share what you know and try to find answers alongside everybody watching, right?
That has been interviewed. Keep
You see how slow she goes? How careful she words it?
everything straight. I think a little things.
Keep everything straight. How do you keep everything straight? Yeah, when you're telling a story, when you're fabricating, it's hard to keep things straight. It's not hard to keep anything straight if you limit yourself to what you know and say it.
Get twisted and everything, but you got to understand, we're all under a lot of.
You gotta understand. That's when they ask you to overlook deception. That's when they ask you to ignore the simple facts. That's when they ask you to please relate to them and like them and assume that you are just like them. And there's nothing strange about them messing up their timelines again and again. She's asking you to shut off your brain and just like her and give her the benefit of the doubt.
Pressure here, all this.
And most of all, ignore statements he already made because they realized that attacking Malaya backfired on them.
Was put on us, or especially on Daniel, because Malaya's not opening her mouth, and Daniel's taking all the backlash for this. So if it was Malaya if Malaya opened her mouth, just how much backlash she would get. So you got to cut Daniel a little slack here, guys. No, I don't.
And Durwood used the exact same language to cut him slack, remember? That was on May 6th. It was 4 days after Jack and Lily were reported missing. Durwood already started posting on Facebook about the case. He already came in there and he said 3 years living with the kids. He is their dad. My family knows this young man and his relatives. Good people, cut him some slack. If things are proven against him later, then take up the slack. Only if things are proven, not if things come out. He knows what happened. This language has been created in a team effort between Daniel, Janie, and Durwood.
The ATV all the time in the search.
He did not use the ATV all of the time in the search. Oh, okay. What do you mean use the ATV? Did he drive by himself at some point?
It was me and Justin. And as I said, we picked Daniel.
You see?
Up on an old road. We went up the pipeline, Justin and I did. And
because they knew he was on the pipeline. They didn't need to call each other. Him and his friends all knew the area to look for something. And they all knew the pipeline was where Daniel was worried he may have dropped something. That is absolutely crucial, people. And I know there are mine shafts and everything, but I'm sticking with what the language indicates. And I don't think Daniel's bright enough to trick me into looking at the ocean for whatever reason. But the international sea, he referenced it. So I'm going to keep going with where the language of the persons of interest leads me.
We picked Daniel up on an old road. So Daniel did not use the bike. The only time he was on the bike is when we picked him up on the road. And believe me,
I don't.
It's my four-wheeler, and believe me, I don't let Daniel drive my four.
I don't let Daniel drive my four-wheeler. Yeah, except that night you did. On Thursday, because it was an emergency. You had to get rid of Jack and Lily. Okay. Maybe usually you were reluctant to let him drive. Maybe chaotic Daniel, who knows why. Tell me why. Tell me why, Janie. Why? Why?
Four-wheeler, believe me.
Believe me again. Okay, no, I don't.
And yes, he is telling the truth. The bike did have a wiring problem because the mice get.
Why do you feel the need to mention that? You drove it that day. Did he try to remove a GPS or what? Why are you trying to say it wasn't drivable? What are you trying to say here?
Into it and chewed all the wiring off of it. So that's why it wasn't used neither.
All the wiring?
Until it got fixed.
When did it get fixed?
I've been looking at the comments, and if you guys have anything wrong, don't get mad at me, but I will correct you guys. If you go back at the screenshots that Malaya sent Belinda, you will find the time of when Malaya told Belinda what time she called the
When Malaya told Belinda exactly.
911. It's all in her messages to Belinda. No, Daniel did not drive the ATV. I told you it was Justin.
So this is again for her so important.
And I that were out on the bike all day. We picked Daniel up on the pipeline.
And it's good. A woman like that who can't get enough of her own voice, you can ask her the same question again and again, and she will answer it again and again every time she gives us more information. It's a good strategy to, you know, bombard her with the same shit.
On an old road, we went up, Jess and I went up the pipeline, and we went off on an old road, and we found Daniel there. We picked Daniel up.
Found him right by accident. You found him. Look at that vast area, man. And this is just a small part of it all, but out of all the places, he was near the pipeline. That's where he looked. Why would the kids walk directly at the pipeline and be stuck at the pipeline so that out of the whole look up here is where you live? The kids couldn't have gone down this far. No way. No way. But this is where you wound up. In this particular area. To search. And absolutely, you should have followed Daniel with the drone or see, he would have led you to the evidence. So the RCMP, I think, messed up in several ways. To let him go back out there and say, go for it. And they should have said, you know what? Let's see where he's going. Is there a way to follow him? Hey, we're trained cops, right? We know how to do that. We're supposed to know how to do that. Let him show us where to search. But they didn't do that. They cut him some slack. And that's what his life is all about. That's the regular pattern. He sweet talks people into cutting him some slack. But they don't know about statement analysis. They don't know about criminal investigations that are going beyond trying to find out who sold you the rugs. This is where, well, now you understand why, despite it doesn't matter how well you analyze and pinpoint the areas where they need to search, or what they need to look at. If there is too much red tape and an officer says, okay, forget it, man, this is too much for me, this is too much red tape, and just let him, you don't do that. This is why people like me are able to figure out what happened, but it doesn't necessarily matter. There are too many different departments, too many people in charge, and all it takes is one person to make a huge mistake to mess everything up. I'm just one person, but I figured it out. And here you have trained professionals, and it took them that long to look at the pipeline area. They should have followed him from the distance with a drone, maybe, and moved right in there. If they see Daniel and a bunch of guys with similar hobbies all looking right there. Then and there, the RCMP should have moved in. And I don't mean the search and rescue team, especially not led by this one woman.
Travel or say larger objects. So if we know they have a backpack or something like that, we can space people out, 10, 20 meters apart. And especially if we think somebody's going to be...
Things stand out about that first call as unique or unusual?
I don't really know if I want to hear
That-
this, but
Whether it was physically, they were just exhausted, or mentally exhausted, that couldn't return to the search area as well. So we saw a little bit lower numbers on some of the revisit searches that we did with some of the teams.
For that first weekend search, after, the searches scaled back on May 7th,
Yeah.
what were you told when you got that call? Like, why were you going back? Maybe they found something there in that area they're looking. It wasn't that.
It was not. So it was just that we wanted to extend out our search area and cover off areas. Most of these people, they're all volunteers. They just want to find the kids and bring them home. So they're more than willing to keep coming back and keep searching. Unfortunately, at this point, unless something comes up, we're probably not going to be back. But that being said, somebody could find something that brings us back. Children just bring out the best in people when we're in a situation like this. Everybody just wants to come and do everything they can.
Clearly, we don't have evidence to say.
Blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then there's the Janie interview. Yeah, he did a good job putting this all together. But I missed her statement. Found it.
Including my other two kids that live in Halifax now. Going from a family of 7 in the blink of an eye, your family's ripped apart and you're left alone.
Do you think those kids are in the woods?
From everything I've seen, yes.
So much for they know best, right? This is the tunnel vision I'm speaking about.
We got the first call shortly after 11.
Yep.
Daniel was sitting on the front of the bike.
Is that
What happened?
So there was Justin, me, and Daniel on the bike, and we drove Daniel back to his friends that were on the pipeline.
Yep. They were on the pipeline. One specific small area. So what good can come out of this? Well, maybe when the right people watch me, the next time something takes place, they'll be able to say, you know what? Remember what Mike DeMann said about the case? How we missed opportunities, or how law enforcement missed opportunities to catch Daniel early on? And this is the reality I live with. So even when people say, well, do you send this to the people? There are people who are sending the things that they think are important from my videos to the RCMP. I don't want to have a direct contact with them because they're not going to tell me anything. And so far, well, if I have the right contact, of course I will communicate, but I don't need it. I need the statements from the people who know more than the RCMP, and those are the people who were actively involved. That includes Daniel, Malaya, Janie, and whatever friends were there on the pipeline, knowing exactly where they have to search. Those are the people I want to hear from. So my question to all of you is this: how can we find out which friends of Daniel's were on the pipeline? Who all was there? What can we do? Thank you guys for listening, and I'll be back soon.